Let's return to South Africa, where the Finance Minister, Enoch Godongwana, has announced a temporary R1.50 per litre reduction in the general fuel levy, looking to soften the impact on consumers. Africa's most advanced economy is looking to mitigate the price of crude oil that has jumped some 30% since 2022 started, and especially since Russia invaded Ukraine last month. To broaden these and other latest developments ahead as we head into the weekend is Arise News correspondent Mxolisi Masango in Johannesburg. A very good evening to you, my friend. I'm sure this will be a bit of a breather. Around 50 cents back in your pocket, my friend, when you buy fuel. What are the full details of this fuel tax adjustment announced by the government?
Well, Bosun, it couldn't come at a better time. I was already considering, going back to some of the old modes of transport, including donkey carriages that we used to use.
Hilarious.
But in any case, South Africans have really been given a temporary fuel reprieve. But it's not really going to lead to any price adjustments in this month beginning, which is April. Just this yesterday, we heard the general fuel levy would be reduced temporarily to or by R1.50 per litre from the 6th of this month, and this will be just until May the 31st. Now, the levy accounts for about R3.85 per litre. Bosun, although April's official fuel prices have not been announced yet, unaudited data from the CEF points to a medium increases for fuel, and that is no April Fool's joke, I can tell you right now. The finance minister also announced the various permanent adjustments that will be coming into effect from June, which includes that much needed price cap of the 93 unleaded grade fuel, which is going to be kicking in just before June. So most South Africans sort of breathing a sigh of relief at this point.
Well, is this a hugely welcome social support? How's the local media reporting this latest development?
Well, the country is still grappling with a lot right now, where you even have the most of communities indifferent to this, because more than half of the population itself, Bosun, does not even own cars. So some of them feel they have not really been affected because the cost of getting from point A to point B is quite expensive. And we've seen the introduction of e-hailing services winning the hearts of most South Africans at this point. So the media really trying to keep, a sort of colorblind tone, or trying to downplay it, because just before you know it, they might be trying to amplify this new reprieve. Next week, there might come an announcement that there's going to be another fuel hike on the cards. So it's really just a case not of just breathing a sigh of relief, but also not celebrating at this point.
Interesting. Explain to me how South Africa generally manages local fuel supply and demand metrics and the impact of volatility in oil prices, even when the Russia-Ukraine crisis is not even on the table at all. How do you manage out on a regular basis?
Well, the country imports the bulk of its crude requirements from African producers, including Nigeria and Angola. So we factor in, of course, the Gulf of Guinea and the border west coast of Africa, where we have many producers and some already exporting. I don't know if you recall this last year, but during the large-scale looting and unrest, we saw massive fuel shortages after the fuel supply chain was massively disrupted. This is when some trucks were stopped en route and fuel was siphoned off. So now we see a greater balance of what is available and the even distribution to the various parts of the country, which government is also trying to regulate at this point.
Well, South Africa is looking to become a key oil producer and gas producer on the continent, off the coast. So what's the latest on that project? What's the outlook on its completion? Will it make things a little bit easier for you South Africans if you discover pump oil, refine it in your own backyard?
Look, Bosun, the oil industry is divided into upstream and downstream activities. South Africa has, no sort of oil reserves of its own, and about 60% of the crude oil requirements are met by imports from the Middle East. Now, the major petroleum product that are sold in the country are petrol, diesel, and illuminating paraffin that are used in the country. So government has been regulating wholesale margins with all this, and it would seem that they are a step closer to being that African golden child, in fuel supply, even if it's just in the distant future rather. But government at this particular point in time did mention in many talks that they're really trying to have a solid supply of minerals. That also depends on how speedily government acts on those efforts as well.
Okay, let's sum it up around report that some South Africans are kicking against plans to replace the state of disaster with COVID-19 health regulations. What's going on here? Which may place the country in a perpetual state of lockdown. Tell me more about this.
Interestingly, we just had the president last week come and address the nation and give a revised lockdown under Regulation 1, basically saying that most activities can now proceed, such as we're going to be seeing more live events, more sporting events as well, going to be allowed to go back. But again, most South Africans still feel indifferent because of this. The reason being most livelihoods were affected by this global pandemic. And this was at a time where government was busy preaching the gospel of trying to balance livelihoods and lives and saving lives at the time where they had those harder lockdowns. So most South Africans at this particular point in time feeling that these efforts to try and ease these COVID regulations come a little too late, comes at a time where the job market has seen so much strain, comes at a time where many people themselves are struggling and are living hand in mouth on the day-to-day basis, and basically saying that they couldn't really care less whether government loosens up or tightens up these COVID regulations at a time where they're still grappling with basic day-to-day bread and butter issues that concern the majority of the country, which is unemployed and does not work or does not know where their next meal is coming from.
Interesting and very concerning conversation. Whatever you're having for dinner tonight, do make sure you grab one. Mxolisi Masango, our Correspondent in Johannesburg. Do have a pleasant evening and thank you.